I was working with a student last night who said that they often got a little bit lost in the browser within Studio One and they found it a little bit confusing. So I figured I would go ahead and make an updated tutorial for it because the one that I have is about 3 or 4 years old, so it's well overdue to go ahead and get that updated. Now, I know this is not the most exciting topic, but I actually do like the browser within Studio One. And if you decide to stick around and watch this video, I'm sure you'll probably find a handful of tips that you may not have known, and they can really help your workflow. Because I spend actually a lot of time, this is very important for me, the browser, when I'm working on my songs and working within Studio One. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and take a look at what's available in the browser. Now, of course, we can come to the bottom and click on the browse to open this up. And we can also use the shortcut key of F5, and that's going to open up the home page here. You then have F6 that will take you to the Instruments tab, F7 for the effects, and so on for these other tabs. Now let's go ahead and close out the browser because I just want to mention that if I press Control and F as in Frank, then that's going to open up the browser and take us immediately to the search field. So just by pressing Control F, we can open up the browser, be taken to the search field, and then I can just perform a search and find what I'm looking for, like so. We can clear out that search by clicking on the X here. Now we can also click on this tag here and select different tags to perform searches as well. And we can see that that's there. We can clear that out there, or also by clicking on the X. Now let's make our way back up to the top because I would like to show that we can choose to display certain tabs here. So by right-clicking, I'll just right-click on the loops there, and then I'm going to choose Customize. And then we can see we are taken to the Browser tab within our customization window. And so, for instance, if I don't want to see the shop, which I really don't, we can then remove that from the tabs here. So anything that you'd prefer not to see, you can just simply deselect in the customization window and make it happen. We'll go ahead and close this out. We also have a search button here all the way to the right. And we'll come back down. If we'd like to close out our tag search, we can just click there. Now we see we have instruments, effects, loops, and so on. These all basically tie in with the tabs up above, so you can use either to navigate to the particular section that you would like to go to. Now down at the bottom, we can re-index our presets. So if you've made some changes or moved or deleted some presets outside of Studio One, then you can click on this button and then everything will be re-indexed and updated within the application. Now below that, we have a plugin manager. So by clicking once, we're then taken to this, or we can do some management of our installed plugins. And I actually made a video for this, so if you're interested in learning more about the plugin manager, you can check out the link up above here. But we'll go ahead and close this window out and let's switch over to the Instruments tab. Now starting from the very top, we can sort by several different ways. By default, this is going to be on vendor, so we can see PreSonus, UHI, UVI. But if we were to select the flat view, then we're going to see every plugin instrument that's installed on your system listed in alphabetical order. So you have that view available as well. You can also choose folder. So here we have sampler and synth. If I click on this, we can see my Falcon and Presence, all of the samplers, as you can imagine, in that folder, and all of our synthesizers here. We then have the vendor, the type. So with type, we can see these are the native instruments to Studio One within the PreSonus. And then here is our VST3. Okay, we'll switch this back to vendor. Now at the top, we can access multi-instruments that are available here. I feel like this section is often a bit neglected by users, including myself, but there's actually some cool things. You can access your external instruments. So if you set up hardware gear, you can drag it in from here. Also our note effects like our arpeggiator, the quarter, and so on. And we've got track presets. So here are presets provided by PreSonus that are already here for you. But if you save your own track presets, then you can find them here as well. Okay, then we have favorites. I actually don't have anything in there, but we'll take a closer look at that in a second. And then we have recent instruments that we've used. Now, if I go ahead and expand out the PreSonus just by clicking once, we can use our up and down arrows to navigate like so. And if we have an instrument with presets, at least this native instruments, native instrument, I can left arrow to collapse those presets or right arrow to expand out the various presets. So right arrow to expand out the strings, left arrow to collapse that folder. I'll left arrow again, then we can collapse those presets. So just know you can always navigate with the up, down, right, left arrows, like so. Now, when we right click on an instrument, we can favorite, hide, or refresh. So if I were to choose to favorite the impact, which actually I do like the impact a lot, when we come to our favorites, we now can see that listed here. And if we come to the Mojito and I'll right click and hide, then we can see that that's removed from our list here. Now, if we come up to the top right, we have this wrench icon. So if I click once on that, then we can see we have the option to show and hide when we have this active as well. So if I'd like to bring the Mojito back, then I can click on this circle here. If I'd like to favorite it, then I can just click on the star. So we can also access the favorites by using the wrench as well. And we'll take the impact out of the favorites also. Let's go ahead and click on the wrench to get rid of that. And then here we have a button for show or hide our thumbnails, whether they're by PreSonus or third party, just clicking on this button here. And then finally to the right, we have a toggle the tree mode. So if I click on this, then we're going to switch the view here and we have more of a gallery view. So if I click on the back arrow, then we can see all of our instruments in a gallery view. If I were to double click on Yuhi, then we're taken within that folder. Now we can also toggle the gallery view and switch to a list by clicking on this button here. So now we can see everything in a list view. We'll come back to the gallery and let's switch back to our tree mode. And I'm going to use the left arrow to collapse these folders down. Now let's switch over to our Effects tab, and this pretty much functions the same way as the Instruments tab. We can see all of our instruments. We have the sort by options up at the top, whether it's going to be flat, folder, vendor, or type. We have some effects chains that we can access, mix effects, event editors. We've got our favorites and recent. So this is all very similar to the Instruments tab, and one of the things is that if I were to select a particular effect, then we can see more information about it as far as the vendor, the category, and visit the website here. So if we come back to the instruments and let's expand out the Yuhi, I'll click on the Zebralet. Clicking once, we can see also the vendor category and so on. Let's come back to our effects. Let's collapse that folder, and I think we're pretty much safe to move on to our loop section. Now this is an area that I think confuses a lot of people in how to find the loops. At least a lot of the students that I work with, they have trouble finding what they're looking for. Now, the important thing is to take note of the sort by section. So I've got all of the folders collapsed here, and right now these are sorted by instrument. That's our first category. So if we take a look down here, then we can see bells, brass, drums, guitar, keyboard. We can see everything by instrument. Now, the next field we have is type. So if I were to click on the atmosphere, then we can see audio files, documents, musical files, and video files. So we're seeing the different types here. But I could come to this field and then choose character. So now we're going to see within our instrument category, which is atmospheric, we'll see the character, loop, one shot, or other. If I then come here again, if I choose style, then we see electronic house, trap, world. Now, if we expand out one of these folders, what we're going to view after doing that is going to be based on what is set here. So if I click on the house, then we can see character. And that's pretty much what we've got there. So if I were to choose general, then we can see other. And let's try to find something that has a bit more going on inside. So here we have a couple extra folders under bells, and we have general. So we're seeing electronic and world. If I were to change this to style, then that switches to other, product. And so not all of these categories are going to have a relevant result here. But if we were to say start at the very top, right now we're set on instrument, and let's change this to style. So if we don't want to search by instrument, maybe we'd like to search by the vendor. So here we can see Earth moments, our personas, loops, sample magic, and so on. So now if I expand out the Earth moments, then we can see other is listed because we have general selected here. But if I were to choose instrument, then we can see we're going to sort by instrument here, mallets, percussion, strings. If I expand out the strings folder, then we see world. Let's expand out the vocal, the woodwinds. I'm trying to find something with a bit more going on here, but let's change the style to character. And then we can see that we have a few more options that become available: acoustic, dry, ensemble, and percussive for our strings. So I hope this is becoming clear how you can use these different tiers to refine your search results within this window. Now, of course, we also can make use of the search feature by clicking on the magnifying glass. So if I click on this and I put in bass, then we're going to have results that are related to the bass, as you can see down below here. And now that we have these results, we have an information pane down at the bottom. So we have this bass space that's highlighted and selected. And then we can see the tags that are defined for it. It's under effects and wet. We can see its name. We can see the sample rate, its bit depth, whether it's stereo or mono. We can see the file type and its length here. Now, if we click on a file that has BPM information encoded into it, then we're going to see that information here. So if we take a look at this bass, this 115 I'm imagining represents the BPM that's encoded in the metadata for this file. So I'll click once, and then we can see that that BPM data shows up here. Now, if we'd like to audition our loops, then we can double click, and then this is going to play back. And we have controls here. Well, first I want to mention that if I use my up arrow, after we've double clicked, now everything else is going to automatically audition. But you do need to double click to begin that automatic audition. Okay, so we can stop playback here. We can have it loop by clicking on this here. And when we have this engaged here, this is going to match the loop if it has BPM data encoded to the tempo of our song. So right now this is set to 120. If I was playing the song back and I was trying to find a loop and I wanted to hear it in relation to, I went to audition them in relation to the tempo of my song, then we'll want to be sure that we have this engaged here. Then when it plays back, it's going to match with your song tempo. Now, finally, we have a volume control here for auditioning, specifically our samples. Okay, so let's go ahead and close out our tags by clicking on that icon there. And we'll go ahead and close out our search as well. I'm going to click down at the bottom here and use my left arrow to kind of collapse everything. We can even use the down arrow to come down and collapse these individually if you're OCD like me. Okay, now let's make our way to the Files tab. Now here we're going to be able to access our system directory. So you can see that we have our desktop, documents, music, our music folder, Studio One. This is important because if we expand this out, we can see diagnostics, the installer. We can view our macros here and any presets, including our user presets. So for the click track, if I expand this out, then we can see that I have one that I've created here. So if I were to select this, let's right click. We can rename it, delete it, show in the Explorer, and some other options below. And also, which could be useful, is the templates down here. So if we set up templates, then we can see here's my Studio One template for when I'm creating songs. So if you need to manage those, you could do that within this area. Here we can view our sound sets and the various volumes that we may have on our computer. And that would include any external drives or thumb drives, what have you. Now, of course, we have a search field if we'd like to perform a search. And when we're clicking in these search fields within the tabs, it's going to be specific for that tab. Unless you're on the home page, then that's going to search for everything that we saw with Control F. But when we search, say, within the files, and it's really going to search our directory here. Now, we also have a Studio One tab where we can more directly access the installer, macros, presets, projects, templates, and so on. And we can also set up our own quick access buttons at the top here. So this sample library, I added this myself. So when I click on this, it takes me directly to all of my own personal samples that I have on my computer. So If I were to say come to the drum samples, let's expand that out, and say I wanted to put the sound iron up here at the top for quick access. I can right click on that folder, and then I can come to the bottom and choose New Tab from here. So now I can come to my system directory, the Studio One, my sample folder, or I can really drill down to the sound iron folder, like so. If I'd like to remove it, I can right click and we can choose Close Tab. And now we can see that that's been removed. Now let's come back to the sound iron folder and right click just to show that we have a few more options. Pack sound set from the folder. We can create new folder, show in our Explorer. We can rename, delete, and so on. And the last thing I'll mention is that just as within the Loops tab, if we were to navigate to some samples here, and I'll click once to select, we can see in the information pane more information about it as we saw within the loop section for our sample rate, bit depth, and so on. And again, if we wanted to audition automatically, we can double click, and now I can use my up and down arrows to move through these and have them play back automatically. Let's go ahead and stop that. Okay, now we'll make our way to the Cloud tab. And then here we can access the Presonus Exchange, so other users of Studio One will upload things like different color schemes that they've created. If we double click on that, then this will be populated with these color schemes created by other Studio One users. And you can just select one. There's a bit of information about its size and when it was uploaded, and then you can click on Install if you'd like to check it out. Clicking on this back arrow, we can come back up one level. We can check out extensions. So we can see we have a sound set builder for Mac here. We have for Windows. So if you'd like to create your own sound sets, then you can come there. So there's a ton of things to check out here that have been created by other folks, even sound sets. Let's come back up. We then have Studio One Plus. If you're a member of that, we have SoundCloud. But let's go ahead and make our way over to the shop. And basically you have a search field where you can search for different things. This is pretty self-explanatory. Double clicking, we can make our way in. We can find different plugins, Studio One upgrades, and so on. And then finally we have the pool. And this is going to be a central repository for any audio that we have recorded or loops or audio samples that we brought into our song. So let's actually bring a loop in. And I'm going to switch this to instrument, come to the atmospheric, and let's just randomly drag something in. Maybe something else here. And I'm actually going to press T as in Tom to add an audio track here. Let's say OK. Now let's arm this for recording. I'm going to take the monitoring off so I don't hear myself. Let's enter into record and just get some vocals in here. That sounded horrible, actually, these effects. But anyway, we've got an audio recording. So now when we come back to the pool, we can see our two loops that we brought in, the texture acid and the Atmos here. And we can also see our recording that we did. And the cool thing about the pool is if you ever had a time when you may have accidentally deleted or removed an audio recording from your arrange view here. So while this is highlighted, I'll just delete that out. Just note that in the pool, it's still here. So maybe you accidentally removed something, but you've done a lot of other actions after you removed it, and you can't just simply undo that action because we could just click on Control Z and bring that back, but we'll delete it out again and we'll pretend that I've done 100 other actions. We can always just click, hold, and drag that in from the pool back to our song. Now at the top, we can sort by several different ways: track, type, location, record, take. I'll just put that back to flat. We have a data zoom here, so we can make these a bit larger. And if we were to right click on these, then we can rename the file, locate it. So if you have recorded some audio and maybe you move some folders around on your system and it is now giving you a red question mark here saying that it's missing, then you can right click and choose to locate that file, we can choose to show it in our Explorer. And that's actually not going to show up because I'm in full screen mode, but just know you have that option. You can show the file location in the Explorer or Finder. We can select it on the track. We can remove from the pool. We can delete that file permanently, and a few other options down here. Now, one that's really useful is that once you've finished working on your song and maybe you didn't keep everything that you recorded, or you recorded several takes and you're only using one take, it can be a good idea to come in here and right-click and choose to remove unused files. So let's actually remove one of these. We'll get this one out of here, and we'll again right-click in the pool, remove unused files. So it sees this one that I did remove from our arrange view. So then if I click on yes, we can see that that's been removed and cleaned up from the pool. Now, if I were to delete the audio recording that I did, let's again right-click and remove unused files. Now we have a different option here, an additional option to delete the file permanently, because if we just hit yes in its initial state here, it's going to be removed from the pool, but this audio file is still going to remain on your system in your song folder, taking up space on your hard drive that when you don't necessarily even need it. So when you are finished working on your song, if you want to clean up the pool, your song, as well as free up space on your hard drive, you can make use of this feature, remove unused files. And then if you want to remove it and clean up space on your hard drive, just be sure that you check this box, and then that's going to be removed from your computer hard drive permanently. Now, if I click once to select this, then we can see we have the same information panel down at the bottom where we can see information on the sample rate, bit depth, and so on, BPM data that's encoded, and our play, stop, similar controls that we saw in the Files and Loops tab. Okay, so this has been a look at the browser within Studio One. I hope this has been helpful. If you're interested in one-on-one training with me, I do offer that over Zoom, so you can find more information in the description of this video or the pinned comment below. And otherwise, I hope to see you in the next tutorial.